Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. And thank you especially to the patrons who help make this possible for you every single day with their support at patreon.com/SW7x7. So we're going to talk a little bit about ancient history in the galaxy. And we don't actually even have to talk about legend stuff because some of this stuff has already been made canon, and in all places it's in the Tarkin novel by James Luceno. And considering he, of course, is the person who wrote the Darth Plagueis novel and Legends, yeah, he seems like a likely source for this kind of information. Now, this actually bears on the Acolyte, and it also bears eventually on the prequel trilogy, because what we're going to see in the Acolyte is, of course, the kind of end of the era of the High Republic and the beginning of the end of the Galactic Republic and of the Jedi Order. Now, you may remember from the prequel trilogy that Yoda and Mace Windu talk about the possibility of their powers, the Jedi Order's powers, being diminished, and that's certainly a symptom of what was happening, but what was the cause of it? Actually, you probably should say causes, plural, because you could argue for a lot of them. But one that I don't think we really talk very much about is something called the Shrine in the Depths. And here's where the ancient history stuff comes in. So apparently there's a mountain spire on Coruscant that was a light side vergence in the Force. So it was a very powerful place for the light side of the Force. Then there was a war in ancient times, a Sith war, where the Sith eventually took over Coruscant, and they decided that they were going to corrupt that light side vergence, turn it into a dark side vergence, and they were able to pull that off. But then the Jedi fought back and they chased those nasty Sith off of Coruscant, and they destroyed that dark side vergence that it had now become. But the actual, remnant, I guess, of the dark side of the Force was still there. And so what the Jedi decided to do in their wisdom, which is debatable, I guess, is to build the Jedi Temple on top of that Shrine in the Depths, which is what it's now called. The idea being that building a light side monolith on top of this dark side thing would basically serve like a giant lid over the top of the thing. So they would prevent the dark side energies from ever being able to come out again. Now, maybe it would have been fine if they had just sealed that shrine and then built on top of it and on top of it and on top of it, and it would have just been buried forever and utterly forgotten. But no, the Jedi actually go back into it from time to time. And one of the most recent times in terms of Acolyte storytelling is Phase 1 of the High Republic. So about, maybe 100 years before the events of the Acolyte series. That happens in the novel Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. And the reason why they do this in that novel, and also just in general, is because they are trying to neutralize dark side artifacts. They think these are artifacts, these 4 statues that they find in Into the Dark, they think they're artifacts that need to be neutralized. Turns out that's not what really needs to happen, and that's a whole other story. But it illustrates the fact that the Jedi are going into this shrine from time to time to try to neutralize things. Yeah, and there's a meditation chamber that's right on top of the thing too. So yeah, this does not seem like they've got this thing sealed and locked down very well. So that becomes the question for us to consider. Is it possible that the diminishment of the Jedi's powers are at all happening because they never really cleaned this Shrine in the Depths? They never cleared the dark side energy out of it. They just put a cap on it and then kept going in and out every so often, and just that energy could continue to leak upward into the Jedi Temple. It could be a very slow, very creeping, but still malicious influence that could have affected the Jedi over decades, centuries. And so that's a question I would love to hear from you about. Do you think it's possible that the influence of a shrine in the depths it doesn't have to be the primary reason why the Jedi's powers were diminished, but do you think it might have played a role, at least significant enough for us to be able to say, yeah, that is definitely a problem that had they fixed it, maybe things wouldn't have gone south for them. So if you're catching this on YouTube, comments are right there. Spotify's got a Q&A section, drop your answer there. And anywhere else, please check out the blog post for this show's episode at sw7x7.com and let me know what you think. And that is going to do it for this episode of the show. If you enjoy the show, please help more people find this daily dose of Star Wars joy. You can do that by just telling people online or in person. You can tell the algorithms by rating and reviewing and liking and subscribing and following and joining and all that fun stuff. And you can even help support the creation and production of this daily dose of podcast Star Wars joy by heading over to patreon.com/SW7x7 and checking out the details there. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyrighted by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.